This is All India Radio Mangalore. Dear listeners, today, on the eve of our Independence Day, it is quite auspicious and happily coincidental to listen to an interview with Miss Tiya Chatterji, who recently produced and released a docu-feature film on Rani Abbakka, the first freedom fighter of India. Miss Tiya Chatterji is a Delhi-based marine archaeologist and writer. She is an avid reader of history and a traveler. Interviewing her is Natesh Ullal, a well-known cinematographer, film producer and director. Here we go.
Hello, Tia. It's nice to have you in the studio. I was going through your profile and you have a very impressive profile. You have a background in maritime research and underwater archaeology, which people, I think very few have heard about. Except Dwaraka, we have not heard of much at a larger scale because popular magazines carried that. Otherwise, people don't know. And I believe that there are less women exploring that. Forget, in our region, not even men are exploring that. So I'm quite curious as to what brought you to Mangalore with this background in.
Hi, I'm so elated to be here and have this conversation. So yes, I guess firstly you're right. There are very few people who are actually doing anything, be it research or be it exploration in the field of maritime studies. It is a niche discipline in India. I have a very close association with Mangalore. 2.5 years ago, I was the editor of Maritime magazine. It was a Bombay-based e-magazine, and I was supposed to interview the chairman of New Mangalore Port. And so that was like the initial connection with Mangalore. Someone who was processing my file became a very good friend and just invited me to visit Mangalore once, and that opened a whole new world of Karavali Coast, the amazing history and culture here. And since then, I think I've lost count of how many times I've visited Mangalore. And with every visit, I got more insights about, the diversity of Mangalore and, the neighboring areas. And it just led me to, actually pursuing a serious research in this area, just not only, traveling or enjoying the coastal food. So yeah, that's basically how I actually came to Mangalore, and I, decided that I also want to do like a research about some topic here pertaining to Mangalore.
Okay, you explained why you came to Mangalore, but of all the people, why Abbakka attracted you?
I have worked with the Indian Navy as a researcher and a writer for 2.5 years. I just finished my association with them. And actually, it was in one of the talks, the Indian Navy talks that I was listening to, that one of the speakers mentioned about Rani Abbakka. And in a very passing, casual mention, that, okay, there was some Rani Abbakka. And that name just struck. I said, okay, I have never heard this name. The people I just immediately took out my phone and I Googled. And I mean, some information did come up, but it was not like very great. I mean, it was really scanty. And I had my next Mangalore visit lined up. So when I came to Mangalore, I went to Ullal. I tried to talk to people. I tried to research. I actually tried to see the ruins of our fort. And you will be shocked that when you Google, you'll see images, you'll see a location, but when you actually go there, there's nothing. And that, I don't know, like someone who loves history, who loves archaeology, I was so upset. I thought, okay, this means that, there is history, but it's actually lost, or it's in the process of getting lost. And then with this piecing together of information, I realized that she is supposedly the first woman freedom fighter of India. And that was, it was just like a bullet to my brain. I mean, I just thought that this is amazing. And how come we don't know about it? Like I've done my graduation from, one of the best colleges in Delhi University, and we were never taught all of this. We never came across Rani Abbakka. And also, I feel India is kind of still sea blind in terms of heritage. We don't value our maritime heritage. And that really motivated me. It was almost like Rani Abbakka was talking to me that, I know this sounds really romantic, but it was like she just told me, like, tell my story to people. And as Indian citizens, I think we all deserve to, know history, and she deserves to be known and to be valued. So that was something which motivated me, that how come people don't know about her? So I need to do something. And in my capacity, whatever I could do. So I just made that humble attempt, and I'm so happy that I was able to do like something to tell her story to people.
Mm-hmm. This you said you heard about Abbakka in a kind of speech where it was a passing reference. This is basically because we also got it like a kind of passing reference in most of the things.
Right.
I don't remember it being part of any textbook, but we were told Abbakka's story. But there were lots of Tulu plays on her, but all confused. Now you look back and see it, exaggerated and all. But anyway, when you went to see these locations, were the locals aware about what she is? And
Actually, I got a very mixed response. So, it would be safe for me to say that most of the people sadly do not know about her. So especially even in Ullal, where we have a circle or a chalk, which we say in Hindi, we have a Rani Abbakka chalk or a circle. And still, if you ask people who is Rani Abbakka, so most of them were not even able to tell us who Rani Abbakka was. And some of them knew. And I would like to point out here that some of the very interesting information that I got to know about her was from these priests in the Someshwara temple. They had phenomenal knowledge about her story. And of course, we couldn't record it on a camera, but I mean, still they were resource persons who, helped me piece together the story. And also these fishermen, it just made me realize how we kind of, our approach towards academics and research is so narrow. That's what I felt. We immediately jump onto Google and, books and papers, research papers. But there are certain subjects that need you to actually walk on the field, talk to people who are fishing from 20 years. And you just talk to them and they just told me that, this is Rani Abbakka's story. And let me tell you that 85% was pretty accurate. And that's really amazing. I did get this interesting information from such people, but most of the people are oblivious. Even people who are venturing on the beach, Someshwara beach, they do not have any idea that, what stretch are they actually walking on, or there's any historical significance of the place. That was kind of baffling. In fact, I've interviewed one of the descendants of Rani Abbakka, and he also, sort of brings out in the film that he was also not aware about history and this very significant part of history, I must say, which is associated to Rani Abbakka. And it was only very later on that he, got to know that, what's the importance, and she is the first woman freedom fighter of India. So yes, it's pretty shocking.
The kind of Abbakka that was projected to us was a kind of warrior queen kind of thing. But your film brings out her as a kind of person, quite broad. So what was when you heard about Abbakka first, what was the idea you had in mind? But as you went on with your research, how it changed and took, did it take a drastically different shape, or it just developed into a kind of beautiful concept? I mean, what is it?
Honestly, when I got to know the first idea, that picture, you visualize. So the first image that came into my mind was of a queen, probably who's very fierce and, very ruthless. Because being a woman myself, how the society sort of always tries to suppress women. And that's even true today in a certain extent. And so I had this image that probably for her to achieve whatever she could achieve during her era, which would have been even more difficult, she would have been, someone very fierce and ruthless. And number one, she was fierce, but she was not ruthless. I mean, slowly when I was researching about her, that I got to know that she was a woman of a great character. Especially when you read about these Italian traveler accounts, define her, the way she looks and her simplicity, but yet the aura that she had, that she was also very kind. She was brave, but she was also kind. She was very close to her subjects. And, that was one of the reasons why they just fought for their motherland. Even most of them also died. It was just not. So I was looking at her from a very singular perspective, just a queen. But then her other qualities, she had a disturbed married life, and what ethics were for her. What were her values? She was so strong and independent that she could leave her husband. He had become an ally actually with the Portuguese. And she could just take her children, come back and just rule for her subjects. She had an individual personality. She was just not a queen, but she had her own individual personality. I think that for me was so striking, which usually when we read history, it's very rare that we kind of have that in-depth understanding of a queen. It's mostly we portray someone as a king or a queen So we're just talking about the grandeur, the pompous, nature, all the jewels and the silks. But that's not the case with Rani Abbakka. That is something which is, I personally feel like, that's like a very touching aspect for me, to know her as a person in whatever little capacity that I could. So I think it was not a drastic change, but yes, a very, very significant change as, I got to know more about her story. And I have tried to bring that out, because then what happens, you form a personal connect with the character. So by the time I finished the film, if you ask me now, I think till I'll be alive, Rani Abbakka will be a character that I feel so close to. Even in my film, I've said that I feel a close association with her, because I think I know her personally in some capacity. So, yeah.
Okay, that leads me to ask you. See, Abbakka had all communities, part of her
Yes.
thing, whether it was different castes or Muslim. I mean, you could see in her army or in her close circle. So, how was this possible at that point of time? Was it necessitated because of the politics at that time, or whether it was a kind of natural expression of her persona?
It's a very good point that you actually brought up. I think it's a nice blend of both. She was, very strategically trained. I mean, she had excellent knowledge of warfare and, other things that are required, which actually enabled her to be a very, very strong and capable ruler. So definitely, I think the political angle is there. She would have thought that instead of, sort of segregating and dividing, she could actually use all the people as a united force. Because if you see, like rightly pointed by you, in her army was very diverse, and it was all inclusive of all religions, of all castes. It had Mogaviras, Mapilas. I think she was smarter because she created a united force, and all of them had a singular objective. And we all know the power of unity. We've been taught that in school. And also I think it gives out a very, very strong message of communal harmony and how it can be leveraged for the welfare of your state. So she did that. So by that, she also could, successfully use it to her political leverage. And also at the same time, she kept all her subjects very happy. I don't think she would have had this problem that, probably, certain caste is not happy with her, or, other religion is not happy with her. Everyone was happy and everyone wanted to, just lay down her life for her. In my opinion, that is an excellent strategy. And I also believe that she as a person, loved all her subjects irrespective of whatever caste and, creed or religion that they belong to. So yeah, it's a perfect blend of both, and I think it's a very, very good example that we can consider in the diverse country that we live in. That how if we all unite and if we just forget the petty differences that we have, we can be united to one objective and grow together as a country.
You heard about Abbakka and you wanted to find out more about her. In the process, you felt you understood her. Now, like a ballad, you want to communicate, her story to people. But then why did you choose the medium of film of all?
So I've already written a book on underwater archaeological sites in India. I've tried to tone down the academic in me, but it so happens that when you're researching and when you're writing, you do get that tone, and it might be extremely boring for some people. So the feedback that I got when I wrote the book was that, oh, we are extremely interested in underwater archaeology, but you know what, we really don't want to read so I think my book is 250 pages or 255 pages, and they said it's like a lot to read. I just thought, okay. And when I was researching about Rani Abbakka, I had actually intended to write another book. And I was sharing it with my friends. And so I keep giving a lot of talks to, youngsters and, people who are curious about how to go about researching in maritime studies. So I took I just made a simple Google form and I started circulating it to students, to people who are working, and so basically different age groups. And so I started collecting the data that, if I want to introduce historical information to you, so how would you like to receive it? Would you like to read a paper, a book, or so most of them, and that's the trend right now. Everyone's glued to their phone. I mean, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. So basically information packed together in a very short duration of time. I mean, the hindsight is also that our attention span is reducing.
Yeah.
but let's not talk about that. But the most of the response that I got was it was hinting towards audiovisual, something that they can watch on their phone or some kind of media, not reading per se. And I have no experience in filmmaking. This is like my first humble attempt, and some of my close friends, and particularly one, he really motivated me. He said, what, just make a documentary film and people may receive it better. I mean, initially I was skeptical, but then I thought, okay, why not? Let's just try doing it. And so the whole purpose of choosing a documentary film, so why not a feature film? Because of course, being someone from the history background, I don't like tampering with facts as much as possible. Of course, I have my own limitations. Every research has its own limitations. I don't believe in glorifying history. So I thought a documentary would be a better way. And also, so because I thought, let me just try and make the genre of documentary a little more interesting. Probably I can do something which makes people change their perspective that, documentaries are boring. Only old people or boring people watch documentaries. So that was also one of the idea that I had. And I just wanted like the message to reach as many people as possible. I just thought documentary would be a good idea for that. So that's how I decided to do it.
As you mentioned, it's quite challenging at this point of time, not to make a documentary, but to take it to people. Because I have seen from 1 hour, 1.5 hour, my clients, I make client-based films and clients started demanding. It came down to 30, then it came to 24 because the standard was set by Doordarshan. Then it came to 15 minutes. Now they ask me for 6 minutes. Okay.
Wow.
I don't know. It's like a multivitamin tablet, which has to take care of every aspect of your perception. So we have a very strong and dominant TikTok kind of generation. With this kind of generation, when you make a film like this, which has lots of things which people have not heard before or not understood, trying to explain their region, trying to explain somebody who has struggled to retain the autonomy of the region, if we exist also because of the contribution of people like Abbakka. In this kind of situation, where you have a lot to say and people are sort of tuned to see only short thing, how do you do this dissemination work basically? Because that is important. People have to see. Now, do you think your work will work as a standalone documentary, or has it to be part of some kind of lesson or presentation, or what is it? What do you think about it?
I've tried to use different elements in my film to bring out, a very historical perspective. So our general perception about history is like history is boring. So I go interact with the students and I say, do you think history is boring? And actually most of them raise their hands. So to make history interesting or to make documentary interesting I think it's a very big challenge for everyone. And me being someone who's very new to the field, I think I have a whole different journey ahead of me. So I have tried to use as many interesting elements, that I feel are interesting to basically hook the audience to the subject matter. And my aim is basically to impart infotainment, which is information in a fun and entertaining way, or when you're giving out information in a more snackable way. Because what happens is that when we have that very scholarly approach, or we have a very narrow or Eurocentric approach, what happens is that we are only targeting, or we are probably just giving out something that we think is right, but our target audience is actually expecting something very different. So I've tried that one. Second, Rani Abbakka, I think, is as of now definitely a standalone project for me. And I think that the subject and how I've treated it, I'm not sure if I would treat other subjects in the same way, or other subjects would give me an opportunity to experiment with the different styles that I've tried to use in this documentary. So for now, it is standalone. I've also started thinking about other areas, and it could also be possible that, it could be a part of a larger series that I want to create of research in probably Queens, or I'm still in the process, so I'm not going to label it. But yeah, right now, these are the two things that you can sort of derive from this, film of Rani Abbakka. So that is how it is for me right now. And I won't say I can replicate it somehow, because it is so close to me. I just don't want to tamper with it anymore. Now, you can say that there are many things that were missing. Of course, I am very open to suggestions, and wherever I go and screen my film, I do ask people for suggestions. but I would incorporate them in the next film. Rani Abbakka is going to stay like this. So yeah, that's...
Now, it is not just us being here who have not heard about Abbakka much or have heard very little. There is a large section of the population in the country, in the state of Karnataka and rest of the country who also have to know about Abbakka. So after you made the film, have you screened it across India to different varied kind of audiences, or do you have plans for that? And if you have done screenings, how was the response here? For example, if you have done screenings in maybe different kind of audience in Mangalore region and maybe other part of, what was the difference in responses and reactions?
So I'm looking at a pan-India approach. Of course, I've heard people say that she belongs to this region, but I think that she deserves to be known pan-India because, history belongs to everyone. I use this sentence often that we are the custodians of this shared heritage. It is not your or mine, it is ours. That is also one approach that I find slightly faulty. That if something is from Mangalore, so only Mangalore people should value it. I think everybody should value it. Regarding dissemination, so firstly, right now, I'm only doing offline screenings. One of the reasons for this is that most of the times I try to be at these screenings. And so it becomes a platform for interactive dialogue. So what I do is I try to tell my audience that watch the film and ask me questions. Whether it is about Rani Abbakka, whether it is about me, or how to make a film, how to go about it could be anything. So far, I think we've almost done 10 screenings. We premiered it in April 29th. After that, we've had a couple of screenings, and this is the second trip. And again, we have done a good number of screenings in Alvas College, Sayadri College, Srinivas College, and so on. The response so far, I think, has been good. I've also met students who said that I also wanted to make a film on Rani Abbakka, but I didn't know how to go about it. I felt so happy and I told them that, you know what, you have a basic storyline, now go make it in your language. Because my documentary is in English. The narration part is in English. Of course, the interviews are in Kannada and Tulu language with subtitles. More than that, in some cases, I think just screening this film has motivated the youth to do something that they actually enjoy doing. In fact, there are many students who are pressurized to be an engineer, to be a doctor or anything that their parents want to be. And creative field or writing is infamous, especially in India. You tell your parents you want to do filmmaking and they'll just give you a look and like, are you crazy? I feel happy that I can say this today, that I have actually given people the opportunity to consider that perspective, to think that perspective, that probably they can go reason with their families and do something and how to go about it. When I was doing my graduation, my dad's an engineer and no one in my family has done humanities. I was a science student and then I shifted to humanities because I want to study English literature or I want to study history. So nobody was there to guide me. We didn't have Instagram. I was not on social media also for a very long period of time. And we didn't have access to such resource persons. Wherever I go, I tell them that this is an opportunity, leverage it. You ask me questions. So that's there. Till now, for organizing these screenings, Young Indians, the youth wing of CII, has helped me tremendously. So I got in touch with them from a connect. I have a friend in the Coast Guard. He's an officer and he got me connected to Young Indians and they have been since then helping me. So they are a part of this. I think soon I'll be screening it in Delhi. So since I've worked with the Navy, I requested them and probably like in Navy Children's School or in Air Force schools because I have, quite an experience of working in the defense industry. So I know people. I am trying all the ways that I can to screen this film as much as possible for not only schools and colleges, but also other people. And also I'm trying to get it dubbed so that I can push it through rural areas here in Karnataka and, the nearby places. So that's the general plan. Some people ask me, why don't you put it on YouTube? That is because I don't know if it's a selfish, motive, but I do intend to probably put it on OTT or maybe Epic channel or History channel. There is that commercial aspect as well. So that is one of the reason why I have still not put it on any social platform. So I just tell people, because people ask me that when are you going to screen it in this state or, So I just tell them to be patient. It takes time. Especially for me, it's like a single one-woman army. I'm just doing everything on my own. That's like the broader plan. But I want each and everyone in India, I know it's an ambitious dream, to know about Rani Abbakka. And hopefully this will stir up the emotions in people and also the relevant authorities. And I would definitely like to pitch it to a level wherein I request the relevant authorities to put up a chapter about Rani Abbakka. And not only about Rani Abbakka, we have so many unsung heroes. We are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav and everyone's running behind finding unsung heroes. I think I've done my humble contribution. I've found out an unsung hero, and probably now other people can also take over and, help me take it a level higher. So that's like the broad plan with dissemination of Rani Abbakka.
Through your screenings, definitely you would have influenced, like you said, some youngsters, definitely. Now, through your experience, now, for example, handling a topic like Abbakkas, where not much literature is there to access, even if you're talking of oral history, it isn't much compared to, other kings and queens of Apagat, Mysore or North Karnataka region and all, where we have this form of Lavani, and there are varieties of Lavanis, giving you all dimensions of those kings and queens, which is not here. Abbakka was limited. There could be many like that, with the limited kind of thing. Now, you face lots of difficulties to narrative. You at least have a background in research, in history, and your interest in archaeology. It's a kind of perfect blend for a filmmaker of this kind. Not everybody has. So you being so, you yourself had encountered lots of blocks and all. So how did you overcome this, and what would you advise or recommend to people who are newly getting into this kind of topics?
Yeah, I do consider that I had that strong point of research and reading. It is just not for writing books or, doing a PhD. I think in general, I often tell people that if you want your vocabulary to be good, just read. Just read newspaper every day. Especially youngsters, nowadays they don't understand the importance of reading, mostly consuming other kinds of media. So definitely, yes, I did have that strong point, but there were a lot of difficulties. I think one of the major difficulty that I had to, face was the language barrier. Because I understand basic Tulu and Kannada, because I've spent so much time, I've been coming here since quite some time now. But of course, complex sentences or certain words, that they just like, I wouldn't understand them. But thankfully, my team, my editor and the animator and everyone, they're all from Mangalore itself. That was also one of the reasons why I wanted to work with people from the region, because also coming from another place, there are many things that I may not be aware of. Probably there's a certain conduct that I'm supposed to, follow if I'm at a certain place, or I'm not supposed to wear a certain kind of clothes. There are so many things which your team can, sort of help. So I think for me, language barrier was like the biggest constraint, because trying to understand the emotion of what they are saying and how to ask your next question, because if you don't understand what they're saying, how will you, continue the conversation? Because film, it's like a conversation. It's more than an interview. It's like a conversation that I'm having with these resource persons. So my advice would be for someone who wants to get into this kind of filmmaking is to get your basics right. Sometimes it's all like we are fascinated with something, and when we actually start doing it, we just feel stuck and we just don't know what to do. So I think just clear the idea in your head. And third, and the most important, I think, is never be afraid of research and reading. Research is I think it's a scary word, but let me just put it like as simple as reading. Just read and meet a lot of people. I meet so many people, so fortunate to meet you today here. That's how you build that, network. Every time you meet someone and you have a conversation, a productive conversation, there is so much that you can learn. And with all those learnings, that is how you actually implement it. That's what works for me. I do that. So I talk and I meet with as many people as possible. So I would definitely recommend that to everyone into filmmaking or not into filmmaking. Do a lot of networking, do a lot of reading and learn. And not only like learn or write it somewhere, implement it. It'll definitely and drastically help.
Now, making a film about a historic person, it is not just about bringing that person to light, which is important. There is a lot that one has to learn from the past. It is not just, glorification or, to keep somebody on pedestal and all.
Yeah.
As a filmmaker, there might have been quite a few insights and learning that you would have had. The viewers also have to have lots of, learning. So what is it that you are expecting that your film will bring to the viewers other than what I mentioned?
I think one of the most important thing, the message which Rani Abbakka film should trying to give out is simple living, high thinking. Pietro della Ville, Italian traveler, he talks about Rani Abbakka, and he kind of describes her as how she actually does not fit in the definition of a queen. No silks and elaborate jewels and, very, very simplistic woman, but yet so skillful. So it was not that external beauty. It was all about the skills and how she was as a person, which actually proved her to be a very strong ruler. That's a very, very important message in this era that we live of social media and constant peer pressure, that it is how you are as a person and your skills and qualities rather than how your appearance is. Secondly, I think the most important message that I personally also want to give people is that, see, Rani Abbakka loved her subjects, loved her land, and she died fighting for it. Her daughter died fighting for it. So, they all, for 40 years, for 4 decades, they were fighting just to save that motherland. Even if we say, okay, the commercial aspect was there, the trade was there, but still that patriotism, she was a true patriot. She loved her land and she loved her people. So it gives us the message that how important history is. Our culture, our values, we lack history consciousness as a society. And it's getting slightly worse, it's not slightly, it's actually getting worse day by day. We are moving away from our roots, our traditions. So I think we should learn something from Rani Abbakka, we should also love our land, our culture. And like I spoke about, that concept of shared heritage. It is our joint, heritage, and we are all guardians of our heritage, culture and tradition and history. So I think these are the most prominent things that is like the takeaway from the film. And lastly, also that we talk about women empowerment, right? But Rani Abbakka had so many personal issues and, other issues that she was facing. I personally feel that she was a woman who excelled without being empowered. She teaches us, or she gives out that message to the women, or she's an example of what a woman is capable of doing when she is not empowered and also when she's empowered. I think that's already a very strong statement to make. So I think that's a very big lesson that we all can, take away from her.
Good. Now, about your passion, basically. Underwater archaeology and maritime history. The coast of Tulunadu, what is the scope for this? Now, if others want to get interested, maybe where you screened, some students might have expressed their interest in doing so. So what is the scope? Not just of Tulunadu coast I'm talking of, I'm also talking of the Karnataka coast. You just have to enlighten me whether there isn't enough studies that have been conducted, research that has been conducted, or is it a domain which yet to be explored?
I think, of course, there have been some attempts to bring to light different aspects in terms of history, heritage, culture of this coast. But of course, now there are different mediums to bring out your research. I did it in the form of film. But I personally feel that there is tremendous scope. And when I say tremendous scope, I'm talking about unexplored. So it's like an untapped resource when we're talking about broadly even the Karnataka coast. Coastal Karnataka has, and not only coastal Karnataka, there is so much of scope for maritime history, maritime studies, and I'm not very confident about underwater archaeology because what happens is that to even actually take a dive and look around, the sea conditions have to be, good, and a lot of other things. And underwater archaeology in India is actually a dead discipline. No one's actually doing it, and it involves a lot of financial and other kind of resources which nobody's willing to invest in, at least right now. So I'm not sure about underwater archaeology, but I'm sure, given that there were significant wars that were fought here and this vast amount of history that we have, and of course heritage, I'm sure there also would be an untapped source of underwater archaeological studies which we're not aware of, that aspect. Because see, in Goa also, I've dived in Goa, I can tell you that there are thousands of Portuguese shipwrecks lying there. No one's bothered about it. So if it is there, so it is the same coast and the history is also connected. So I'm sure there is something here also. It is just that someone just needs to start exploring. So definitely there is a lot of scope, and I hope that there are more people in the future who are taking up such studies, and probably that will create some kind of pressure, on the relevant organizations, and they might, help researchers or like independent researchers like me, or, filmmakers who, like, this was a self-funded project. I was not supported by any organization. So probably like people like us could get help and we could do better work.
Thanks for spending time with us in the studio. There are lots of things that you have put light on, made us understand. I hope there will be many more works like Abbakka from you, because see, like you mentioned earlier, academic research stays somewhere, it doesn't come to people, where you build a bridge between the resource that is there and to people. It's a wonderful job that you have done, and I wish you great success in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm extremely happy that I got this opportunity, and I hope I have made a difference in at least like some people's life, whoever is hearing this. So thank you so much.
Dear listeners, you have just heard an interview with Ms. Tiya Chatterji, producer and director of the recently released docu-feature film on Rani Abbakka, the first freedom fighter of India. Interviewer is Natesh Ullal, himself a cinematographer and director of repute. This interview is broadcast from the studios of All India Radio Mangalore.